Three, two, one. I think we're good to go. All right, guys. Good morning, and good morning again. This is Silas Grant, and I am back with another installment of How Should I Introduce You? I've got two great people with me today on this particular installment, Derrick Colbert and Patrice Lancaster. And I want to welcome the both of them to this conversation. And for those who are watching for the first time, How Should I Introduce You is a concept where I introduce two people that I know who don't know each other and people that I think should know each other. And so I want to do a quick intro of the both of them, and then we'll go right into it. And I'll start with Derrick. Derrick Colbert is a devoted father, husband, brother, and community builder. He has over 20 years of experience in the community development industry. He is a certified family development practitioner. He's also credentialed in fatherhood practitioner. He's also a credentialed entrepreneurship and small business developer, and also a political strategist. So welcome, Derrick Colbert, to How Should I Introduce You?
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, Silas.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. I now want to introduce Patrice. Patrice Lancaster is also known as the ResourceQueen. She is a community activist, a change agent, philanthropist, and a CEO of Lancaster Consulting, which is a community-focused PR, marketing, and branding firm. She is most proud to be a mom of two sons as well. So Patrice, welcome to How Should I Introduce You?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. When I was talking to Derrick before you logged in, and the one thing that I know about the both of you is that the both of you kind of move in silence. The both of you work extremely behind the scenes. And I know people always say that, I don't want to be in the front, but you guys really do the heavy lifting from a distance, and people don't often get a chance to see or hear from you all. So I thought this would be a valuable conversation to have. And I do appreciate the both of you for accepting this, because I know that the both of you prefer in many instances to remain distant from the limelight. So that's really, really appreciated by me. So I wanted to say that up front. But in terms of being resourceful, right? I know, Patrice, you're the resource queen, and I look at Derrick as a person who's really an expert in being resourceful as well. When did the both of you realize, or when did you feel like you first became resourceful? And then also, how did you see the value add in being resourceful?
You want to go first, sir?
Ladies first, please, just.
Okay. So, I had gotten, my mom is a pastor, and I had grown up in a church in Shaw, and we used to do like a lot of community efforts and things, and she had actually started like a food bank at the church and things. And so, of course, with people coming on a regular basis and we building relationships with them, they tend to open up and share about other things that they might be encountering, or some, hurdles they were trying to overcome and things. And so, in helping the people in the community and things like that, to secure things like housing, or to just navigate local government and things, one of my friends at church had started calling me the resource queen, because I had gained my experience by helping, through helping the people that were coming to the food bank and things with getting what they needed, and it just stuck with me, because once he said it, then all my other friends was like, right, that's what we should call you, that's who you are. And so I say I got the title like in about 92, 93, and it just stuck with me.
Got you.
That's great. I guess for me, I don't think I really realized it. I believe it was something that just who I am as a person. Growing up, I'm the youngest of three boys. We have four boys. My mom adopted my cousin. So I always was like the person that always had to do all the cleaning up and kind of help folks along the way. So as I got older, it just felt like that I always been like it was part of my DNA that I always was there to help folks, you know. And as I got older, as I started moving into the community realm, I just seen how the elders of the community was always there to help our people along the way. If it was to Patrice's point, if it was giving out food, advice, you know, letting folks know where to go at to get free utility assistance, where to go at to get job opportunities, things like that as well. So it's something that I can say I just fell in love with. It's really just helping people. And just out of a passion and out of just who I am as a person. And as I got more and more embedded into the community / political realm, I seen how the behind the scenes person was actually the people that was really like the heart and the engine of the movements. And so that was something that I felt like that was my niche, and I just stuck right there with it. And as things evolved, I felt like that was my here again. I felt like that was my purpose in life, because a lot of times folks feel like, okay, well, I want to be the one up front. I want to be the one that's calling the shots and things like that as well. Not really understand like what's your purpose. And I respect this conversation because I feel like it's a purpose-driven thing that you're doing, Silas. So I would say it was more about purpose for me versus anything else.
Got you. Yeah, it's interesting, right? So I think about a year ago, I was watching on Netflix the documentary on Clarence Avant. It's called The Black Godfather, right? And I drew so much inspiration from that, not necessarily about the power that he had, but just his ability to care for other people and to always make himself available for other people. So I've drawn a lot of inspiration from that over the last year. In terms of being resourceful for the both of you, who are some of your inspirations in terms of being resourceful and connecting others?
Really, Aquarius Van.
Okay, yeah, I know her.
Yeah, as I like the way that she aims to serve, but she also does it in a structured way. So she's, has been trained by Kimmy Gray on how to navigate government in order to get the things that her community needs. And I just like the way she has excellence in those two fields and intertwines them to be effective in her service.
Okay.
Well, you finished, Patrice? Well, for me, I will start with my late grandmother, Teresa Wilkerson. She had 16 kids, so I come from a large family. And she was very resourceful, When you think about raising 16 kids in the 40s and the 50s, in the 60s and the 70s, and being able to feed all 16 children, and not only that, but also to feed roughly back then roughly about 30 grandkids, and as she got older, it was more of us. I would start with my grandmother first because she just was very resourceful. I never seen anyone in her family go hungry at night. Everyone was able to eat breakfast in the morning. Everyone had clothes on their back and shoes on their feet and things like that as well. And then I will move on to my mother. My mother was a single mother, raising 4 boys, and she always made sure that we had everything that we needed. Not everything that we wanted, but everything that we needed.
Yeah.
And as I moved into the community realm, man, that list is long. I could talk about the great late Marion Berry. I could talk about the great late James Blunt. I could talk about another giant in this game, Brenda Richardson. I could talk about I could talk about the late great Marshall Brown. I could talk about my father, Derrick Colbert. I could go on and on about folks that were resourceful and show me actually how to do this government work. I think about someone that's still here, Mr. Finance Jones and Monica Ray and that whole crew right there, that really showed us how to do community work, and also, to your point, how to understand how government works. You know, a lot of times we say we want to be resourceful, we want to help our people, but we don't know exactly how the machine or how the industry works. So it's really sitting down and understanding and being open to listening and learning from the elders, and they really showing you, taking you by your hand, and really showing you how to connect a Department of Human Services to a nonprofit here in the community. You know, if it's understanding how to connect the small business administration here in the city to a budding entrepreneur or small business owner, you know, and it's really understanding how to connect the dots. I think that was really something that was key for me, as I was growing up. I see something good, but it's not perfect. So yeah, so I think that has worked for me.
So you both talked about, you know, how government works. One of the things that I often notice is that there are people who come along that are passionate about getting things done, and they put an emphasis on the passion, but they may not put as much of an emphasis on learning how government works. And I don't want to say the system, because that has a negative connotation. But how do we get people that are passionate up to speed on learning how government and policy and guidelines work?
One of the unique ways that a group that I'm working with is doing teach-ins. So they're having events, book readings. All of these are happening over Zoom, and then discussions and things like that. Just creative ways to problem solve, or to start just breaking down how the government is structured and things like that. We used to have a DC government requirement in DC public schools that kind of broke down, you know, the branches of government and things like that, but it wasn't really a robust curriculum. That could be something else that could be added as a core requirement for our public education system, or even if not that, just some way that our young people, or we're approaching our youth and giving them entry into the government space at a younger age, if you will, even middle school, so they could begin to know faces and say, oh, when they do become adults and begin to engage, they can have some history or rapport, if you will, with people that might be just coming off the porch per se and being involved in government, so that they could know of their body of work and things like that. I went to Shaw Junior High School for a while in DC, and when I went there, it was a highly political school for some good reasons and some bad reasons. But one of the good things that happened was we got a lot of political engagement from the council members, mayor, you know, whenever dignitaries came to town, they came to Shaw and things like that. So we were able to, you know, see faces and remember people that may have came by and connected us with resources and things like that. So I think that it has to happen at a younger age in order for just the history, because a lot of the ability to navigate through government has to do with the knowledge of history, because then you begin to know what people in power, what their values are, or what's important to them and things like that. And it would be like a warmer handoff, if you will, when they're trying to engage them or engage their staff.
Gotcha.
For me, I will say, Patrice made some she touched on some very good points. I will say, to really get folks more engaged. I think it really starts at understanding the passion for the passion of our neighbors, you know, and understanding exactly what drives them and how they really want to see our neighborhoods and our communities develop. Because I feel like a lot of times, as it relates to government, government talks down and government doesn't talk with,
Right.
with the people. So I feel like that we need to bring back the course that was in schools that once before. I believe it was government, understanding government. I believe that we need to bring that back not only on a national but on a local level as well. Because I remember when I was in high school, junior high school, it was more about national governments and things like that as well, not really on the local level. So bringing that back into the schools as well, not only to the schools, but a lot of these community-based organizations that's actually servicing the youth and the families as well, doing some kind of civic engagement courses around with their client base as well. I believe that's something that would be good as well. But really understanding like what drives the community. You know, what do you really want to see, and really educating the our constituent base on exactly what our government role, what is the government role in development of your neighborhood and your community and also your city as well. Because sometimes what I hear is people believe government's supposed to do it all, and I don't believe that government is designed to do it all. I believe that that's why we have community-based organizations to assist government and actually achieving some of the goals that's established throughout the government entity as well. And not only that, but getting more, educating more people around exactly what is the role of a ANC commissioner, advisory neighborhood commissioner as well. And I believe, I used to serve as an ANC commissioner, and that opened my mind up to so many great things as it relates to government and how government and community work hand in hand. So really educating our folks, our young people, but also our middle-aged folks, and also our seniors as well, because a lot of our seniors have a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge that they can pass down, but they just not, for whatever reason, have not been actively engaged in the conversation. So this bringing all three of them demographics together and really just having a robust conversation as well. I believe that's some way that we can really start understanding how we can understand people's passion and also what drives them as well. So that's my take on that.
You know, and I asked that question because I've had a series of conversations recently about the role of government, and to your point, Derrick, the fact that government can't do everything, but then there are some things that government can do. And it's disheartening to hear people, specifically young people, carrying on the cliche statements, oh, the government don't do nothing for nobody, all these politicians are crooked. And to some degree, you can identify examples that align with those cliche statements. But then when you have someone who is elected or someone who does work in an office that can provide you with instances where they do help, and you see their eyes light up like, wow, I didn't know that. I think that's the most disheartening thing. So that's why I wanted to ask the both of you that. And I always think about this, like, who is spreading these cliche statements? Why do people automatically accept them? How do we get that out of the way so that people can properly hold accountable government, but also be aware of what government is actually doing in their favor?
Can I say something to that?
Yeah.
I believe, and I believe that comes from the mindset of our people, right? Because a lot of times in the past we have been crippled by the notion of government supposed to do everything for you. And when that kind of mindset is passed down to generation from generation to generation, and you really don't understand like the roles of government, nonprofit, civic associations, and the whole 9 yards, then it's easy for you to say that. And sometimes what I see, and every time that I hear that, I kind of speak to it as well. It's because what I see is just because something didn't work for one individual, then that individual automatically says, you know, it's not going to work for the whole entire community, or it's not going to work for the whole entire population. Now, it probably didn't work for you because of so many reasons, you know, and I don't want to get into the reasons, but for so many reasons. But you shouldn't talk down on something that can benefit someone else. Prime example, right? When someone contacts a community-based organization or a government entity for utility assistance, I'm just using that as an example. And for whatever reason, let's say Derrick was able to get that utility assistance, but my wife Juanita was not able to get it. Now Juanita gonna go out here and say, you know, the government not working for me. You know, I went down there and it didn't work out for me, not knowing that there probably was an income requirement, not knowing that there probably was a household requirement, not having all of these facts of exactly what are the requirements for you to benefit from this actual service. So a lot of times it's about I'm gonna take it back. It's about educating our people about exactly what are the roles of government, what are the roles of your AST commission, what are the roles of the citizens, and the whole gambit. So it's more about education, you know. The good book say my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So I'm the type of individual that I'm always trying to instill wisdom, knowledge into folks as well, because that's what the elders done for me. I was one of them young people that always said government is not working. You know, government is not doing this, government is not doing that. Until one of the elders said, you know something, you saying that, but look at them streets right there. The streets are paved. That's government work. You know, look at that school building right there. Every child that meets the income requirement was able to eat breakfast and lunch. You know, at school, that's government working for you. Look at them teachers in there. Them teachers are getting a salary. That's government working for you. So I really had to change my mindset early on to really understand, like, what is understanding the role of government. So
Right.
that's what I'm saying.
I also heard from the both of you early on in this discussion, the church, right? And you know, we're here talking on a Sunday morning where under normal circumstances, churches would be operating, and now they aren't because of COVID-19, at least in this area, right? Mm-hmm. There are certain areas that have opened up, but here in DC, they've not opened back up yet. And I'm just curious from the both of you were inspired by the Bible and inspired by church to give and to be resourceful. What role do you think the church will play in the future of developing future resourceful people? Because there may be kids growing up that will never go into a real church because of restrictions or because of just differences in faith. And seeing that it played a role, and it also played a role in my giving back too. So I can attribute a part of that to that as well. But what do you think the role of the church will be in the future in terms of like developing new leaders?
So one of my core values is based on this scripture in Isaiah chapter 2, and it talks about Zion and the mountain. And it's a time where all of the mountains of influence will go to the church per se to get guidance and direction on how to govern and how to operate in those different systems. So that's always been my vision for the church, and that wouldn't happen in the church, the building per se, right? It will happen in the people.
Gotcha. Now it's funny you mentioned that because, you know, I'm starting to also see conversations being had in the faith-based community about politics and how, to some degree, politicians on both sides of the aisle have been using and, more importantly, misusing bodies that have gathered in churches for their political gain, but they may not necessarily be, you know, genuinely aligned with the faith-based organization. So I wonder sometimes if the intertwining of church and politics has also negatively impacted people to a point where they're starting to distance themselves because they can't differentiate between the two.
So what has happened has been the abuse of power within the church structure, right? And there are ways to monetize that by dealing with politicians and saying, what the church, what the church saying what the government wants them to say. But as you see, it's causing the power of the church or the influence of the church to dwindle. So it's going to have to almost be rebuilt again, if you will. And once that happens, it'll look different. It'll be more outdoors, and one-on-one engagement from individuals, and individuals really like problem solving. When I was hungry, you fed me. Solving those problems on a one-on-one basis, and helping families. And as that happens, the respect will be restored, and then they'll be able to say, okay, this is how it's supposed to be run, and I see that happening more and more, but I think even this COVID thing that we're experiencing right now is a time for people to really reevaluate, like, what am I doing? What was I doing every Sunday anyway? You know what I mean? I'm home with my family, and my family is stronger now. I actually get to know these people, where I would be gone from 11 to 3 and come home to a heavy dinner and really didn't, spend time with my family and things. So there's a lot of things that are changing. A lot of the structures and the institutions that we relied upon previous to COVID, they're changing now. So I think as the air clears, we're going to see a different place, and different types of institutions are going to have to operate differently, because people are going to put demands on them that they didn't previously. I'm excited about it.
All great points. For me, not to get too spiritual heavy, but I believe that when you research the earlier days of the church, Emmanuel, who they renamed as Jesus, really didn't preach inside or teach inside the four walls. He was always in the community. Right. He was always on the road. He was always actually touching the people. And I believe that earlier on in our democracy, it was a reason why they separated church from state. And I believe that in order for the church to have a more impactful role during COVID and also moving forward as well, is to really get outside of the four walls of the church, to really get back to true discipleship, to really get back into really helping the poor amongst us, to really helping our brethren and our sisters along the way, and not being so super religious. Because if you really think about how some of the battles that Christ fought inside of the Bible, it was more against the super religious people, and really getting to understand, letting people really understand that you are a person, a human first. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm gonna say it on this platform right here. I'm a minister. My mom is an evangelist, but I don't walk around with the minister crown or the title leading me, because I believe that you minister by leading by example. You allow people to understand exactly who you are and let your life reflect your spiritual principles. And so when I have these kind of conversations, and people be amazed, like, you're a minister? Yes, I am, but you would never know that unless I tell you. But if you examine my life, you will see the way that I live and the things that I honor lines up with the spiritual principles that aligns with the church. So it's more about getting our folks from out of the four walls of the church. It's about really getting back into the community, into the neighborhoods, and leading with hey, my name is Derrick, you know, not even, but hey, my name is Minister Derrick. Hey, my name is Derrick, and I come from the same struggles, the same trials and tribulations that you come from. But let me give you some examples and some advice of how I was able to overcome these trials and tribulations, you know, and let you know that my life is not perfect. I still struggle with certain things on a daily basis, you know. But having real conversations, I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. Having
Yeah.
real authentic conversations with our community and let them know that you don't have to be perfect in order to be able to be accepted into the kingdom. You know, you don't have to be perfect just because my brothers and my sisters over there practice the Muslim faith or the practice of Islam facing the Muslims doesn't mean that I have to hate them. You know, we all are one people. Just because they have a different religion doesn't mean that we cannot work together and kind of bringing everyone together and versus trying to have everything so divided and so separate. And I believe that a lot of people, when you sit back and look at the church in the bigger picture, people see division. And, you know, so it's kind of sometimes it's kind of like hypocritical. Like, how can you say that you serve a God that does not judge and love all people, but your actions is showing you something totally different. So that's my take.
Yeah. So when I was listening to the both of you talk about faith and getting outside the four walls, my thought, and I want to get your thoughts on this. It seems like the church, from my vantage point, is afraid to get outside of the walls because, to your point, Patrice, you have to, once you get outside the walls, serve people on an individual basis. And I think sometimes the church may believe that if I treat each individual as an individual and I don't have blanket mantras that I can push on them, then I'm afraid that I'm going to potentially contradict based on each person I'm dealing with, right? Not understanding that each person needs individual attention, and sometimes you can't pour a blanket statement on everyone. It may not apply to everyone, right? You may be a minister preaching from the pulpit, and you're preaching to the person who understands the least, but there may be a person who's more of a veteran in the faith who needs a different sort of message. So from my vantage point, I believe the fear of getting outside those walls is that once you get outside, you got to individualize that message.
Mm-hmm. Because you have to be real. I mean, it makes you vulnerable. And, you know, dealing with people on the street level, a lot of them see right through you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got to tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to say anything though. And I always tell friends that too, because me and my best friend, we used to like to go evangelize when we were younger. So we would go, and then our other friends would be like, we don't like doing that. And I would tell them, like, you don't have to do anything. Why don't you make us some sandwiches or something? So it's different ways that you could serve. You know what I mean? All of it doesn't have to be the one-on-one, face-to-face interaction, but touch people in a way. You know, some people just need clothes. They might not need to be talked to. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's like, you know, like a workforce program, and you know that you like fashions and you overshop, buy something for somebody else. You know, so it doesn't have to be, you know, people have different skill sets or different things that they enjoy doing. Find out what you enjoy doing and serving, and then just do it, and you'll find the joy of it, you know, and the fulfillment of helping somebody.
I've always looked at, well, not always, but I think in most recent times, I've looked at the Bible as a story about family, right? If you look at a lot of the books in the Bible, it starts off with the writer explaining to the reader where they come from, right? The son of this, the son of that, you know, and I can't remember like an exact example, but the author of those books typically will start it by giving out their lineage, right? And family dynamics today are not what they once were in terms of like the nuclear family not being as promoted or intact as it once was. And I know for you, Derrick, like you've been married well over 20 years, you've got a full family, and you promote that. And when I see that, I'm often like happy to see you doing that.
That's a blessing, yeah.
Yeah, because you're proud of who you are, where you come from, and you talk a lot about family.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
How do you think the role of family and the dynamic change will impact us in terms of community-based efforts and, you know, trying to spread a belief system that will be beneficial for people? How do you think these dynamics change and will change how that works?
That's a great question. Yeah, just first and foremost, like family, that's just the way I was raised. Like family is everything to me. My wife and I, we met when we was 15, 16 years old. Been married for 21 years. So the thing is, like I seen how my grandfather, I seen how my uncles, throughout whatever situation that was going on in their life, they made sure that their family structure was always secure. And that is still something that, to me, just early on as a young man and as a young boy, that I always wanted to make sure that my family was the most important thing in my life. And I tell people this all the time whenever I have an opportunity to speak, is I believe that my daughters saved my life, you know, along with my wife as well. They saved my life. They gave me the purpose of living, because I had my first two daughters before I was 18 years old. So, and just think about a young man back in 94, 95, 96, in that era of DC, you will understand what I mean by they saved my life. So I made sure that I honored that commitment every step of the way, and I didn't deviate from it, regardless if I had to carry that heavy load on my back. It's a heavy load, but all the spiritual books that I have read over the years say that the man is the head. You know, so what does that truly mean? Does it mean that you stop carrying the load when it gets heavy? Does that mean that you deviate from your plan when you feel like something probably can pull you off course? So family, and if you really research the history of the black community and the black family, like family has always held us together. You know, family has always made sure that we was thriving. It was around economics. It was around community input. It was around education. It was around the church. Whatever it was, like family was always the nucleus that held everything together and made sure that we thrive. So that's why I lead with family. That's why I promote it so heavily, because I feel like that it's funny that you asked that question, because I watch a lot of documentaries, right? And this past weekend, Friday night, I was watching a lot of documentaries. I watched this documentary on the Kennedy family, and it was very enlightening, because I never knew that Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, both of their grandfathers were involved in politics early on in their life. You know, and the actual the grandfather Fitzgerald was the mayor of the city in Massachusetts. The other grandfather, he owned a saloon, but also he was involved in politics and all went on to be Congress. So, but they molded a family to make sure that they could stay engaged in that kind of political realm here in the country, right? But it really showed me how when you plant the seed early on in your family, how they truly can matriculate into something wonderful. So I always lived that mindset early on. I was like, you know something, what kind of man do I want my daughters to eventually fall for? And I had to carve myself and craft myself and like that kind of man that I wanted my daughters to eventually fall. you know. And that meaning just being a stand-up person, that meaning that leading with integrity, that meaning that honoring your commitment and my vows and things like that as well. And not only that, I'm the youngest of 4 boys, but I'm the youngest of like the first generation of my grandparents' grandkids. And I was the first one to get married out of all of us as well. You know, let them think about my oldest brother got married before me, then I was the second one to get married, right? But I was the youngest one to get married. And the reason I did that was because I really wanted to show my younger cousins that it's a beautiful thing. Like Black love is a beautiful thing, and you don't have to run from it. You know, you don't have to run from it. It's not an easy thing, because trust me, believe, my wife and I have been together for 27 years. I'm gonna say that one more time, 27 years. And trust me, believe, there's been some days, more days than the others. She wanted to knock my head off, you know, and vice versa. But we sit down and we communicate. I believe that at the heart of it all, it's all about communication and not losing yourself for the benefit of the other person. It's about making sure that you actually can stay true to who you are as an individual, but also staying true to who you are as an individual is also helping bring up your partner and your mate and your spouse as well. So that was for me, and I believe that in order for us to really reverse some of the social ills that we see in our community, then we have to get back to the family roots. We have to get back to understanding that mother and father really helps that child to develop in a very healthy way, you know, really understanding that, you know, just because of your past mistakes doesn't mean that you can be a very healthy, thriving individual. Really understanding that marriage is not for everyone, but marriage is a beautiful thing as well. You know, if you really take time to stop and develop your marriage, you know, walking into it saying, okay, well, this is not something that I have to give up who I am. This is something that's going to help enhance who I am, but also enhance the both of us as well. And this is my opinion. I believe like we have to have strong families in order to have strong communities. I don't believe that without strong families that we can't have strong communities. I believe that we have to have strong families to have strong communities, because when you really think about, and I'm not saying that in the sense of the male provides all the financial means for the family. The male have to be present emotionally as well, because when I think about our grandfathers and our uncles and our great grandfathers, right? They was there, they was in the house, but I always ask the question: were they truly present? It's a difference, because being in the house meaning that you sit in your chair, you're watching your TV, you know. The kids come home from school. You ask the kids, "Hey, how was your day?" And the kids probably tell you, they probably start going into their day. You cut them off immediately and say, "Hey, go in the refrigerator, go past that milk and give me that beer right?" And that's all the conversation that you have with your children for the rest of the day. And being emotionally attached to your children, you have to actually be there. You have to go show up to their special or their extracurricular activity. Show up to the spelling bees, you know. Shout out to you, Silas, who wanted your spelling bee back in elementary school. You know, yeah, I watched the episode. You know, you have to be there for the spelling bee. You have to understand exactly who they are as an individual. Like, what are their dreams? What are their aspirations? What do they truly want to achieve in life? And actually be there to support them. But also the other piece to that is you have to be able to be emotionally vulnerable as well. I'm a father of all girls, so just imagine how emotionally vulnerable I have to be to make sure that I'm connected with my daughters, you know, and making sure that my daughters connect with me. And a lot of times, society has, and I just have to say it, society has told the male that if you show your emotions, then you are weak. I don't subscribe to that. I believe when you show your emotions and you control your emotions, you are a very strong individual. It takes a strong person to understand exactly who they are emotionally. And so really getting back into the male, really getting back into saying, you know, something, I have to be here for the betterment of my child or my children, and also being here for the betterment of my community as well. Because if you really research our history as the Black community, the family was really, when you think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? You really think that's family, right? You know, before they bombed it and done to it. You know, when you think about the other ethnicity groups here in America and throughout the world as well, when you think about how they thrive, what is the core to that? The core to that is the family structure. You know, for whatever reason, it's not pretty, but the core to that is the family structure. So making sure that we just get back to that right there. And I believe, and I'm not going to be the dead horse, but I believe that the only way that we thrive as a Black community is to make sure that we have strong families. I'm gonna end it like that.
You're raising all daughters. You're married. Patrice, you are a woman. I'm raising a daughter as well, and I'm married as well. The one thing that I think about, and you know, I see so often people talk about what they expect boys to be for the women that they potentially marry. And I'm often concerned because those boys, I think, more than likely won't be ready on day one to take on that responsibility. But there's always this tug of war between giving men and boys leeway for potential, but then also making that as an excuse, and they never grow into what they're supposed to be, right? And Derrick, you talked about being the man that you would like your daughters to fall for. And I think of this story that my mom told me once, and she didn't tell me the story on purpose. It just happened to go through the conversation that we were having. My dad had me when he was 40, right? I know my dad is a very responsible person, really good with money, really good with time, that sort of thing. And so she was telling me another story, and by chance, she said, you know, early on in our marriage, I had to keep the money because he might not always spend it in the best way. And when she said that, I stopped the conversation, and I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And I don't think she even realized that she said it. And she was like, yeah, I would take his check and I would put it away, and whatever he needed, I would just give it to him. And I was like, my father? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, that doesn't sound like him. And essentially what I drew from that was that he was not always the man that I knew him to be when I was 5 and he was 45, right? He was a different man when she married him and he was 22. So I'm often torn when I see discussions online about marriage and what the man or woman has to be coming into it, right? Versus what they can grow into. And I don't even have a question. I just want to put that out there and kind of get y'all thoughts about that.
If I may, on that right there, right? And that's a part of, in my opinion, I believe that's a part of being a man, because you know your weakness. You know, I don't like to call them weaknesses, but you know your opportunity, right? So you have a mate that's there to, because they say when you get married, you know, you inherit a helpmate, right? So your mom was there to help your father grow in the areas that he needed to actually develop in, and vice versa as well. So the thing is, for me as a man, I contribute a lot to a lot of my growth today, and I'm not afraid to admit it. A lot of my growth today is due to my wife, because she helped push me into my purpose, because for a long period of time I wasn't walking in my purpose, and I shied away from my purpose. And as being a strong man, I needed a strong woman to help me actually move into my purpose. But I also had to know that I have a helpmate. So in the areas that I need to develop in more, I'm gonna go ahead and rely upon you upon it. And it's not about being so much of a of a weak man. It's about being a strong man to understand that you don't know everything. And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this on the platform. And I know a lot of brothers when you post this will be like making a whole bunch of comments, but in my opinion, the female is way more stronger and way more wiser than the male. And by me being a strong male, I had to realize that early on and lean upon my female partner to really help me to develop and to becoming the man that I'm sitting in front of you guys today. So I'm not afraid to admit it. And she helped me develop a lot in my life, you know. Early on, the things that I wanted to do, she's like, no, if you want to do that right there, then you're not coming over here. You know, you want to sleep on the couch, or we're not doing that because you want to do this right here. So that really pushed me into developing who I was, who I am as a man today. So that's what I'm always needing. And society would say that the man is the head, the man is this, and the man is that. Yeah, that's necessarily true, but in a relationship, everyone has a role. And in my opinion, I believe it's 50-50. No individual is stronger than the other individual. No one has more power than the other individual. It's 50-50. And once you understand that going into your relationship and understand that you have someone that loves you unconditionally, and that's the thing right there. A lot of times we place conditional love. You have to be willing to love that person unconditionally, you know, and loving someone unconditionally, meaning that you're gonna cry some nights, you know, you're gonna be angry some nights. You're gonna wake up frustrated and ready to knock that person's head off some mornings. But that doesn't mean that you stop loving that person. You know, you love that person. You love that person in spite of, you love that person throughout it all. And I believe, and I'm so blessed to be able to have someone that actually have loved me throughout it all, and I have loved her throughout it all, and we still growing every day. Just because we've been married for 21 years, don't think that it's all peaches and cream, you know? We still learning every day, but we always are there to help each other along the way. And we never allow our personal differences to stop the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is to make sure that we are thriving and raising a thriving family as well. So I'm stopping.
But Patrice, let me ask you this question, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Derrick and I are married. We're raising daughters. Derrick talked about, and I agree totally with the fact that women play a major factor in our development, that we come into situations not already prepared, and they help prepare us not only for that situation, but even the things we want to do personally. From your vantage point, do you think that we do enough as men to invest in our partners as well? Because I think we often talk about, oh, she made me better, but do you think that men are conscious about the necessity of us also working to make our partners better, and not just even our partners, but women around us in general?
No.
I got you.
But one thing I will say, I have two sons, so I'm the opposite of you guys. And one thing that I had to learn, you know, raising two sons and wanting them to be, you know, healthy and be able to navigate, and not letting being raised in a household with a single mom to affect them and their ability to have healthy relationships and things as they grow. I had to learn to be to turn it down a little bit with, you know, being aggressive and things, and be able to submit, if you will, to their dads, so that we are able to have successful co-parenting relationships. You know, it's certain things that their dads can teach them, and that certain ways their dads relate to them that I'm not able to, and I have learned, you know, to step back and things like that, and it helps. I mean, it's working, you know. I feel that in answering your question, because I think it has a lot to do with what goes on in the world, and affect in in respect to Black men, and how there's a saying that Black women raise their daughters and nurture their sons. Have you all heard that before?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think we have allowed license to be given to, or a pass to be given to Black men behaving badly in the family and things like that, sometimes too much.
Yeah.
And so that's why I responded as your question is no. And then what happens is the reverb from that is women become angry, and then they get stigmatized as angry Black women because they put up barriers like, this is not gonna happen again. You know what I mean? And so a lot of healing has to take place in the Black family, and we don't spend a lot of time addressing that. I was about to say some more stuff, but I'm not.
I got you. And I think it's just for me, I've had a series of conversations. This whole COVID period has caused me to have so many conversations that I think I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. But it's caused me to really begin evaluating and assessing on a conscious level, how much, not just myself, but all men, how much are we, or how well are we respecting women? How well are we working to assist and develop the women around us without mansplaining, right? Without trying to interject the specific way we do things. Like, how do we consciously respect women? And, even with this concept of how should I introduce you, the reason why I call it that is because I could easily introduce Derrick or Patrice to somebody with my version of how I would introduce them, but I wanted to know how you wanted to be introduced, right? So as men, just thinking about the women around us, how are we listening to them and allowing them to have a platform to speak about how they want to be treated, how they want to be received, how they want to be seen, right? How they want to be responded to. I think just having those assessments and observations of myself over and over again during this period has just caused me to be more conscious about the respect that I have for women, and how do I set that example for my daughter, and also understanding that in some of her classrooms in the near future, there may not be fathers represented for every girl. So I may end up being someone else's father by chance in that situation too. And there's so many times where we call Black women to the floor to do more, and they end up doing more than what we ask them to do, and they don't get as much credit, and they end up being the anchor in so many situations, and they don't get the support I think that they always need to get, or they feel they should be getting. So, I don't even know where I'm going with this at this point, but I just felt like saying that.
On the other side of the same coin, a lot of we have. I was speaking earlier about us teaching things earlier to our young people. As Black women, we have dropped the ball teaching our young women about just some woman things like the power of their womb. These might be things that you all can't relate to, but there are certain things that I had learned as far as self-study that I could have learned earlier, even as early as elementary school, that could have kind of changed the conversation, if you will, because what's happening now is there's a lot of movements that get power from the presence of Black women participating in them, and they're actually, their end goal is to destroy the Black family. So Black families Black women, we have to start getting on our posts, with our daughters and actually teaching them about who they are as women, who they are as girls, and things like that. And then the expectations that they have of the Black man, which are unrealistic, which are realistic, which can, and things like that. So it's two sides to the coin. It's not just Black men.
I mean, that was some great points from the both of you. And if I just may add just a little bit to that, is that we definitely have to get back to educating our Black girls about not only our Black girls, but also some of our young women and also some of our middle-aged women as well about exactly who they are, you know, and also having these tough conversations about how do we get here, you know, because so many things have, to your point, Patrice, so many things have came our way to destroy the Black family, you know, so many things. But how did we truly get here and really start having some healing conversations first? Because I believe that we can't heal when we don't reveal. So we really have to. I'm the type of person like, let's put it all on the table. Let's have a conversation about everything because that's the only way that you're gonna heal. That's the only way that we're gonna move forward. And really just saying, okay, we got here because of these things right here. We got here because of we can trace it back to slavery. We can trace it back to when a lot of our fathers went off to fight the Vietnam War, and the mothers didn't know if their husbands was alive or not. So they got on TANF, and the only way they could get TANF is because they had to be a single mom. So they put on the application single. The government wasn't allowing the father letters to really make it back to the mother. So the mother developed her own life based upon herself, and she came back. The father really couldn't contribute, so he felt less than a man. There's so many different things, you know, that got us right here.
The movie Claudine, like that movie Claudine.
Yep. There's so many different things that's got us here to this day, but it's about having these tough and real conversations about, okay, well, this is what got us here right here. So, and to your point, Patrice, this who you're supposed to be. These are the characteristics of a Black woman. These are the characteristics of a Black man, you know. And how do you merge these things together so we can have a strong Black family? Because I agree with you. Like, so many things is trying to destroy us, you know. I love the whole women's movement march, you know. I love the whole women's rights. But if you really stop and think about that for a second, right? To your point, it was when women had got the right to vote, when they got the right to go into the workplace and things like that as well, society told them you don't need a man anymore.
Right.
Right? And so now, regardless of the ills of that father and that male, now I can do this without you. So now you're raising children that's conflicted because they don't know exactly, you know, should I honor my mother? Should I honor my father? You know, how can I make sure that I'm emotionally stable so I can develop? Like, it's been so many different things. So when you really stop and think about the state of the Black community, we have so many different things that we need to address. You know, that unspoken trauma that played a part in our lives. You know, everyone say, okay, well, you get the trauma when acts of violence happen to you, but what about the trauma when I seen my father show up to my door and society has beat him down? He's been out here trying to find jobs for the past 3 months, and now he showed up to my door unemployed, but he's intoxicated because he really didn't know how to channel his emotions. So he went to the bottle, or he went to a needle, or he went to a drug. Now he's intoxicated. How do I deal with that emotion? You know, and my mom is saying, boy, close that door. Don't worry about it.
Right, yeah, that's what I was about to say. Or if he come intoxicated and your mom won't let him in because he don't have no bread. That's trauma too.
Yeah, that's trauma right there too. So how do I heal from that? And a lot of us have not healed from that, you know. And but we jump into these relationships unhealthy. Yeah. And we seeking someone to make us healthy and make us whole, but not knowing that that person is not healthy and whole either. So now we have all these different dynamics. So I believe that we have to start having these real hard conversations, you know, and have the tissue and the snot rags and all that stuff available and really put it out there, you know. So that's my take on that as well. And also honoring, man, the Black woman, because throughout history, we can never, I mean, just think about every movement from the beginning of time, you know. The woman has always been the center of every move. So we cannot do anything in this world without the female being present. We just can't. We won't come into this world without the female allowing us to come in. So,
Right.
so how can we not honor our women? Like, and that's what I'm always telling about the people I talk to. They're like, man, you on this home? Like, no, it's real. You're like, we gotta honor our women, you know. But it also goes to a point that the female have to also honor herself as well.
Right. And that's when what I was speaking about, approaching them earlier.
Yep. Yep. It's been a
Even as
healthy
early as
conversation.
5 years old, you know.
Yeah.
Once they begin to understand that there's boys and girls.
Yeah.
Even that early.
Yeah. Yeah. To stop talking about birds and the bees, because I've never seen a bird or a bee make a baby. You know.
Right.
You know, my kids will tell you, like, I done had so many real conversations with them from day one. Like, nah, I ain't gonna sit right here and tell you what society's supposed to tell you. I'm gonna tell you the truth because it's my job to give you the truth, you know. And because when you go outside, you're gonna get a whole bunch of lies, you know, or you're gonna get a whole bunch of watered down truth. I'm gonna tell you the truth about everything, so you're gonna be prepared, you know, to go into it. And I love my parents, you know. I still have both my parents here today, but sometimes I wish they told me the truth early on in my life, so I didn't have to go into the world and discover all the lies. Then later on discover the truth. You know, if they would have told me the truth early on, then I probably could have made some better decisions early on in my life. You know, so I feel like we are obligated to tell our children, give our children the truth. You know, if you smoke that joint right there, this is what it's gonna do to you. You know,
right.
If you hang with that wrong crowd right there, this is what it's gonna do to you. You know, if when your hormones start jumping and you really don't know how to control them, if you don't channel that right, then this was going to happen. We gotta have some hard conversations, you know, and stop saying do as I say and not as do as I say and not as I do. Like, what does that mean? You know, because,
right. Especially in this day and age.
Like, what does that mean? Because I see
those teenagers be like, whatever.
Yeah, I see my people do a lot of stuff. I'm like, but your words are not lining up with your action. You know, you telling me, boy, go upstairs, but that guy downstairs in the basement with the strobe light going on and it's foggy as a mug there, and I'm like, they having a good time. I want to see what that's about. You know,
right?
And like these are the real conversations you gotta have within our family structure, within our community. You know, I'm a young man and I want to be with one female, but in our neighborhoods, in our community, being with one female, oh man, you weak, you soft, you die. Like, what? Like, no. Like, I have a desire to only be with one female, but that's frowned upon. That has been frowned upon within our community. And we got to help our young men, like, no, it's okay to be okay with one female, you know? And vice versa as well, because now you got some young ladies like, I'm running game. I'm gonna have multiple guys, and I'm like, no, like that's not the way to be. Like, that's not the way to live. So, we could talk for days about this right
here. Yeah.
So once we get beyond the generational curses, the family breaches, and we start moving toward building those families which build tribes, which build communities, then obviously there has to be an economic component that has to be built into the foundation. And both of you are involved actively in what I would consider to be community-based entrepreneurship opportunities. But oftentimes what we see on television from entrepreneurship is an exploitation of consumers. It's all about being a billionaire. And people might even think that community-based entrepreneurship is actually an oxymoron. What do you all think about what I would describe to be socially conscious businesses, businesses that are respectful and respectable, and businesses that consider the consumer, and how we practice group economics and those sorts of things in our community? How do you think we move forward with developing that sort of mindset around business?
So
Patrice, you go first.
what I'm doing, I started a consulting firm where I call it a social enterprise of sorts, and I help move individuals and companies to self-sufficiency economically through, helping them with marketing or preparing for loans, organizational development, branding, so on and so forth. And I've been blessed enough to be able to deal with clients who already have socially based businesses or social good businesses per se, violence interrupters, people that are starting like international, like community-based organizations to handle, community problems without having to ask government for assistance and things like that. And I think that what I would like to ideally have is a hub of businesses like that, where we would work together in recirculating the economy of our businesses, if you will, and being able to buy and sell and trade amongst ourselves. Because from my studies and just from people I know that have done it in different populations, that's how they were able to strengthen their business core in order to acquire more space and place to do that on a more successful level. And then the way that the money is spent or the profits are spent, they're spent in a way that upon the people that own the different businesses agree. So it will go into building strong communities, quite frankly. And then with the the measure of success would be the duplication of the success in the next generation of business owners. That's one way. And then I'm working with another group that's dealing with this concept called time banking. And what it really is using time as a component of exchange, if you will. So you wouldn't exchange money, you'd exchange time. So Silas, if you were to cut Miss Jenny's yard, that would give you a credit that you could take to the barbershop to get to get your hair cut, right? So it's people are helping people in the community, but they're helping them through the exchange of time versus cash exchange.
So just real quick on that, because I'm curious about that. Like, so the person who does the landscaping goes to the barber shop, right? The barber then cuts their hair. Like, give me an example of what the barber could get, like, following that.
So the barber would probably be able to use those credits to purchase marketing services or a business service that they might need.
Got you. Okay. Got you. Okay.
So, it's just based on the needs in the community. Or the barber might need, the barbershop swept out, but, based on the needs of the community, but the exchange would be time and not money.
Got you. Makes sense. I got you.
That's some great stuff, Patrice. Congratulations on your success, and and I wish you all the success in the world as you continue to build your empire, your structure. That's some good stuff right there. For me, Silas, I would say a lot of folks have made the word entrepreneurship a very sexy term. It's not sexy at all.
Right.
It's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of sleepless nights. There's a lot of
especially trying to live in this city.
Absolutely. There's a lot of mistrust. It's a lot of things, right? But also on the other side of it, if you stay persistent in it and you stay dedicated to it, it can be a beautiful thing. Because I believe that first, before you want to jump into any kind of business endeavor, you have to educate yourself, and I'm talking about the traditional education, but also I'm talking about the non-traditional education as well. I'm speaking about having conversations with the elders that came before you that that have done it and getting wisdom and understanding from them as well. I'm talking about going into Barnes and Nobles and actually purchasing the books that can help you understand the actual market that you want to break into. Because a lot of times when I have conversations with budding entrepreneurs, small business owners, they talking about, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm like, do you really have the understanding, or do you really understand the concept exactly what you are attempting to do? And they're like, no, that's why I came to you. I'm like, no, because you need to understand the basics before you do anything, because I'm only a consultant to you, you know, and I can rip you off, I can set your business up to fail, I can set your business up for me to own it eventually. Like, you really need to educate yourself first before you step into it. That's the first thing. The second thing is understanding that group economics and entrepreneurship and small business have always been the backbone of any community. It was the Black community, the Asian community, the Jewish community, the Dominican community, whatever community you want to think of, you know, has always been the backbone of that. And it's more about folks understanding exactly what is the overall goal of group economics. You know, a lot of times folks jump in and say, yeah, I want to practice group economics, not knowing that, you know, it's going to be a long time before you receive a return on your investment. You know, it's going to be a long time before you really start to really see the things starting to thrive. So you have to be able to give us something, a small or even a portion of something in the beginning that you don't expect to get back immediately. And a lot of times we feel like we have the mindset of, oh, a quick flip. You know, I'm trying to get me a quick flip, and that's not entrepreneurship. You know, that's in my opinion, that's hustle. There's a different.
That's what it is.
An entrepreneur and a hustler. You know, that's hustling. So you want a quick flip, then go ahead and go over there and get your quick flip. And if that's working for you, then fine. Keep doing it because it's working for you. But if you want to be able to sustain yourself for the long haul, you know, you have to be able to actually have some tangible things that really can help build you up. And it's more about folks really understanding, like, it's nothing new under the sun. You know, now you can help things evolve. But folks, prime example, people are talking about all the electrical cars that's starting to come online right now. All right, cars are new. I mean, the electrical car thing is new, but the first cars was built upon what? Gasoline, and someone just found the way to enhance that market right there. So it's about understanding how you can enhance that market, and also understanding exactly what are the consumers looking for. Because a lot of times we want to jump into things not understanding exactly what are the consumer needs. You know, you want to start this a landscaping business, right? I'm just using landscaping because it just came to the top of my head. But it's 30 landscapers within your area right there. So why you want? So can you really break into that market? Is it a need for? Do the consumers need more landscapers? Now the consumers may need more folks to actually come in and power wash their decks and power wash their front porches and their back porches and the side of their houses. So, you know, going to power wash, you still serve the same consumer market, but you're just providing a different product. You know, and understanding that, like, we had to. For me, I'm real big in history. We have to understand our history. You know, and I see a lot of us, we jumping into the quick things, but when you think about Black media, been around for a long time, and I'm always when I talk about Black media, I'm putting up things online. I'm telling folks to go down to the National History of African American Museum to understand how Black media was founded here in the country and things like that as well. So what Silas is doing, this is Black media. You know, understand exactly what is the consumer needs and tapping into that and being creative around it. Because I believe the only way that we have, well, I ain't gonna say the only way, but one of the ways that we have strong communities is having strong economics. Everything that we do in this world is based upon economics. I don't care what you do. It's surrounded by economics. And the only way that we come up out of this thing that we experiencing as as a whole is controlling our economics, recycling the black dollar within our communities, not only 5 times, but 20 times more before it actually leaves our community, because now everyone had an opportunity to touch that dollar, and they recycling the dollar. And understanding that you don't have to, and for me, it's more about understanding that you don't have to be the leader in everything. Sarah started this thing off by saying, both of us are behind the scenes individuals. And I told him early on, like, there's only a certain amount of people that I come out and talk for because I don't do a lot of talking. I'm more action oriented, right? But understanding that, you don't have to be the leader in everything, and surrounding yourself with a great team of people and getting everything on paper. That's the biggest thing as relates to us being entrepreneurs. We do these handshakes, we do these, man, that's my man deal, And
yeah, I had to learn the hard way with that one.
I had to trust and believe. I had to learn the hard way 5 times. So, yeah, that's my man. I love him. We gonna go ahead and do this handshake. I'm gonna give you all my ideas. We don't protect our intellectual property as well. I'm gonna give you all my ideas. And the moment that I can't execute that, you're gonna take it and run with it and say that you built this thing right here, right? So getting everything on paper as well. Contracts was established for a reason. Getting everything on paper and clearly outlining everyone's role, everyone's percentage, everyone's, contributions and everything, saying, okay, well, this is how we can move this thing forward. And then the final thing I would say is understanding when to let go. A lot of times us as small business owners and entrepreneurs, we want to hold on to it because we think this is going to bump. Sometimes it's good to let that thing go, and pass the idea on to someone else, but still own your intellectual property. I'm gonna say that again. You can pass that idea on to someone else, but own that intellectual property and make sure you get a percentage of it. But let that individual run with that idea, so just let it go. So I believe that we have to control our economics. The only way for us, that's why you hear, and it's not new, all the stuff that Jay-Z is saying, Pharrell is saying, Master P is saying, Robert Smith is saying, I can go on and on about Oprah Winfrey, all the great Black entrepreneurs, business owners within our space. They're not saying anything new. They study their history, and one thing about history, it always recycles. So they saying the things that was being said back in the 1920s, the 30s, even the 1800s as well, about how we owned a lot of our stuff. Well, for whatever reason, it was taken away from us. And I'm not going to go down that road, but it was taken away from us. But it's about ownership. Everything is about ownership, and leveraging your ownership, because just because you own one piece of property, understanding how you can leverage that piece of property to get more in here in America. Right. If it's not property, then how can you leverage that property to open up multiple businesses and multiple streams of income? And a lot of times we have been conditioned, to say, okay, well, that's one of these real conversations, right? Go to school, get yourself a good education, get yourself a good job, and it stops right there, right? Right. But everyone else say, okay, well, go to school, get yourself a good education, get yourself a good job, but the good job that you're gonna get, you either gonna work for me or you're gonna work for one of my buddies or one of my business partners. You're gonna learn that business structure, right? And then eventually in 10 years or 15 years, after you really have a solid understanding of that business structure, then you can come out and run your own company, right? There's nothing wrong with that. We get stuck with saying, okay, well, I have to have this financial security. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. But in order for us to really be able to thrive here in America, and not only America, but throughout this world, is we have to have multiple streams. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with going to school, getting a good job, want to get a good government job, want to go work for a good Fortune 500 corporation. That's fine. But at the end of the day, in order for you to be able to have substantial wealth here in America, right? You have to have multiple streams of income. In order for you to build a legacy for your children and for your grandchildren, for generations to come, you have to have multiple streams of income. While you're working your good job, also be building your other businesses on the side as well. Now, that's when them 18-hour, 20-hour, 22-hour days come in sometimes, you know, and you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice, hey, man, come on and hang out, man. Nah, I'm building right now, you know. I'm building right now. And you have to sacrifice that, but you have to have no multiple streams in order for you to really understand how to thrive in it. Because my ultimate goal is, I'm going to speak for me personally, my ultimate goal is to be so financially free that I can just, man, help as many people as possible live out their passions and their purpose here in America, you know. And I can't do that working a 9 to 5. You know, I can't do that by saying, oh man, yeah, you know, that new car just came out. I'm gonna go ahead and go drop a $5,000 down payment on that, and that car note is $1,000 a month. Now all my money is going out the window. No, it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and drive this little Buick right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and stack my money. I'm going to invest in multiple things right here. So eventually, in 5 years from now, because a lot of times we think it takes a lot of time. 5 years is not a lot of time, you know, for you to actually do some things in a very strategic manner so you actually can benefit from the long haul. Think about folks that actually been able to achieve everything they have achieved, right? When I think about Robert Smiths, when I think about Chris Gardners, when I think about all them people, they started late in their career, but they grinded for about 5 to 6 years. Grinded. I ain't talking about the grind that we call grind. I'm gonna go ahead and get out here and do a little bit of work and I'm going back in the house. I'm talking about grinding. I'm talking about 18 hours a day grinding. I'm talking about sacrificing all kinds of vacations and personal time to actually build what they wanted to get built. And when you look up 5 years has gone, right? And they look at their portfolio, they're like, wow, I was able to achieve this in 5 years because they was focused on that strategic goal for 5 years. So it's about really understanding exactly what you want. So that's my piece.
All right. Well, listen, I'm thankful to the both of you for being a part of this conversation. I'm losing count now. I think this is the 9th installment, I think. But I thank the both of you for being on and sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys more than you all know. And for those that have been watching, it's my hope that you've enjoyed the combo and that you come back and watch even more of the installments. And the ultimate goal is to maximize and optimize my contact list. And what I would suggest to anyone watching, or I would challenge anyone watching, is to do the same. Introduce people that you know. Get people to know one another. Give them the opportunity to meet somebody for the first time. And, you know, this is all about connecting, growing, and being better people than we were the day that we came in. So, again,
yes.
Derrick and Patrice, thank the both of you for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for considering me.
All right, good.
And good meeting you, Mr. Colbert.
Nice meeting you as well. We will definitely cross paths again. We will speak soon as well. You know,
Okay.
Keep doing great things. I
You
heard
too.
a lot of great things about you. You know, we didn't been in the same rooms together sometimes, but I was in the back, he was in the front, but we definitely and I have
Nah, it was probably me in the back. You know, I be in the cut.
Well, again, thank you guys, and we'll all talk soon. And to those who are watching, thank you all for watching again. All right.
Bye-bye. Thank you.